Hello, my name is Amy, and I am going to demonstrate my function for projectile motion that I programmed for MATLAB. So first I am going to open up the user interface that I created for it. I tried to change the name from practice, but the code didn't like it when I changed the name, and it messed it all up, so I had to change it back. So projectile practice it is. And here it will accept values and pass them to the function that I wrote that I'll show you in just a moment. But here I wanted to show you how it behaves differently depending on whether it gets passed a scalar or an array of values for theta. And here, when it gets a scalar passed to it, it puts all the information for the maximum and the range and the time of flight directly into a text box on the plot. And I have it set up so that when you pass it an array of values, it puts the values into, it outputs them a little differently so that it doesn't have to put labels all over and like tile them on top of each other for when it has several trajectories plotted on in the same window. So depending on how many values for theta it gets passed, it will, anything greater than 1 will be put into a table, and this table will be resized depending on the number of angles that it gets passed. And here I'll give you a gander at the code that I wrote for my function. And that's right here. I've got output variables set up for it right here. And those are defined right here by these two lines of code that compute the x and the y position depending on the value of time that it gets passed to it by this variable here. And this line of code right here will allow it to accept an array for the angular trajectory. And down here, this line of code finds the maximum, and then it plots a green circle at that point for this chunk of code to plot a point at every point on the trajectory and then pause for a moment before it goes back. And it'll do that until y is 0 or hits the ground. And then down here, I have it take those maximum values and the range and the maximum time and put them into lines of text that it will print into a text box right here if the angle is a scalar or equal to 1. Right here it'll do this line of code. Otherwise, every single time it gets past a value for the angle when it goes through the loop, if it's greater than 1, it will load all the data for the maximum, the range, and the time into this variable dat right here, which it then gets called again in this chunk of code that creates the table for all the values to print out into. And I will give you, I'll show you how I set up some error handling with the user interface so that if you put a value that is, say, not a number or just no number at all, it will tell you to enter a numeric value for x, and still it'll tell me to put in a value for y since I don't have anything here at all. So we'll go ahead and run that again. And now notice I have run this function a couple times, and yet I still don't have any variables in my workspace because apparently the user interface works much the same way that a function does. So if I call my function directly from the workspace, like here, you can see back here, I now have values for x of t and y of t, just like I assigned them to here in my workspace. So that is my function. And oh, let me give you a look at the coding in my user interface too. So here is my user interface, and I'll give you a look at the error handling that I did. So pretty much all the action happens down here at the bottom when the run button is called. So here's the callback for the run button. And for each of my edit text boxes, I have a little error handling here where it'll check the value that's in the string field, and it'll check if it is a number, and if it is not a number, or right here, not a number, it will open up a error dialog box for each one of the separate edit text fields. And if it passes through the error handling, then it will take what's in each of the string fields, the string property field, in each of my edit text boxes, which are named values 1 through 4, and it will convert those into numbers with this function right here, and then it will assign them to each one of these variables, and then the function is called right here with each one of the variables that are retrieved from the edit text boxes. And then also this last line of code goes to my other button that you can see. Let me close this. Okay, well, thank you very much, and that's my function.